Well, I guess my leg is nearly healed from a recent bicycling accident, and it's time to put my new Minecraft addiction aside and get back to this arcade recall thing that I does. It's closing in on Halloween, and this was somewhat of a coincidence that I picked a game about creatures of the night for the next episode. To be honest, I was never the biggest fan of Street Fighter 2. Sure, I have Street Fighter 4 on my 3DS, but the pickings were kinda slim when that system came out, and I needed a 3D game. Back in the arcade days, I always felt something was missing from Street Fighter 2. Actually, most fighting games without some sort of supernatural explanation as to why the characters have these incredible powers just didn't do it for me. Enter Darkstalkers. This was Street Fighter on Halloween. The creatures of the night, with their expected superpowers, fighting one-on-one for some reason that us mortals probably would never understand. I'm gonna come clean on this one. This game was out in 1994, I was 14 or 15 when I first played it, and at this time I'm a loser nerd in my school. I'm also reaching puberty, and I have nothing the women in my school want except to mess with me. So what was left to keep me from insanity? Video games. Particularly ones with sexy women, so my imagination could run wild. If I had any of that shame stuff, I would be embarrassed by the fact that I was talking about jerking off. You know, flogging the dolphin, choking the chicken, spanking the monkey, battling the purple-headed yogurt slinger. In my defense, Aphex Twin made an entire song about jerking off, and it is genius, so I am not ashamed. So yeah, I would go to the arcade seeking out another glimpse of Morgan's barely covered fun bags. But Mike, she's not real. Again, in my defense, same with most of the women in any form of media, you can only fantasize about them. Enough about my early teens, the show is not called Puberty Recall. At this time, I was getting into more of a darker metal type of style. I liked scary things, I liked a world where you have some degree of fear as you ventured through it. There was just something about it, maybe the darkness and pain I was going through daily needed an image. I don't know. I feel like this game, if it had come out before Street Fighter 2, it would have been the more dominant of the titles. The gameplay was smoother, the animations were better, it just felt like a more fine-tuned version of the same game. Hell, Morgan even had the same moves as Ken and Ryu for the most part, just a lot sexier. Even though it was more of an anime style to the characters, I enjoyed playing as Frankenstein's monster or a werewolf, vampire, or mummy. This was my type of one-on-one fighter. If you wanted to know more about the characters, they each had a very well-done storyline. I didn't know what the shaman was supposed to be, but I looked it up and found out he was a person who ended up with an enchanted armor and sword that consumed his soul, causing him to go on a killing spree. There's more detail to that story, but I'll stop there. There's also a rock star guitarist who commits suicide and comes back as a zombie. I mean, sure, this game lured me in with its sexy chicks. What's Felicia supposed to be, by the way? A werecat? I mean, I understand Mai Shiranui raised the sex appeal bar on the SNK front, so Capcom fired back, but the game had plenty to offer otherwise. Where the game had a spookier feel than the other one-on-one fighters at the time, it still had a sense of humor, in a darker sense. In Victor's background, aka the Frankenstein's monster, you can see the scientist that brought him to life sitting in a chair. At least his electrocuted corpse is there, which is kind of scary, but when the match is over, his ghost emerges, floats around you, and throws confetti. It's those little touches that can make a game stop being just another fighter and become something that stands out in its own way. These things may have been what helped Capcom perfect its style when it came to the one-on-one fighter. They have tons of them out nowadays, but back then it was just Darkstalkers and Street Fighter, 2, Alpha, Super, Ultra? I forget. Like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of Street Fighter. So there were two sequels, Vampire Hunter, which was part 2, and it was good, but Vampire Savior, the third one, kicked ass. I'll save that for a later recall. Many of the Darkstalkers characters have had cameos or been playable characters in many other Capcom fighting games as recently as Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Here's a handy pocket-sized list for you. I've also heard rumor that Capcom is trying to get enough support for a fourth Darkstalkers title. There will be an HD release of Darkstalkers 2 and 3 in 2013 for the PSN and Xbox Live. It's said this is to gauge whether or not the public is ready for another Darkstalkers title. So buy it. I want a fourth Darkstalkers. If you see this game, give it a quarter. It deserves it. But I'm Multi-Monitor Mike in Arcade Past. Let's make it last. See you again next time.